What's going on, everyone, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's project is this Husqvarna walk-behind trimmer, and the problem is that it won't start. I don't want to scrap this trimmer anytime soon, so let's see if we can find out what's wrong with it, and hopefully we can fix it. In this video, we try and repair this trimmer, but this fix may not be the one you need for yours. We'll explore other options during the video. We don't have a lot of information to go on, so we're going to have to play it by ear. I can say, though, that this thing is in really good shape, and whoever had it before didn't abuse it. Now, this engine has an automatic choke, so there's no priming. It makes it a lot simpler to start, but when the choke fails, the engine simply will not start when it's cold. However, after taking off the filter, we can see that the choke flap is in its closed position, which is where you want it to be when trying to start it, so this isn't our problem. There's still gas in the fuel tank, so let's try starting it and see what it does and doesn't do. Well, unfortunately, it didn't start, so we're going to have to keep looking for our problem. Let's try putting some fuel into the carburetor's throat and try starting again. That way we can see if the engine has a fuel problem. Well, luckily for us, it started, so we either have a fuel or a carburetor problem, and the easiest thing to check first is the fuel. Let's drain out as much gas as we can from the fuel tank so we can check its overall condition. Of course, the thing we're looking for is if there's any water at the bottom of the fuel tank. Well, unfortunately, the gas looks brand new and there isn't any signs of water at the bottom of the jar. That means there's probably a problem with the carburetor. To remove the carb, you first have to remove the 4 bolts that hold the air filter base to the engine. And after the bolts are out, we can then carefully remove the base from the carburetor. Next, remove the fuel line from the carburetor. You're going to have to be very careful doing this as the carburetor is completely plastic and you can break it. You'll need to use a small flathead screwdriver to release the choke lever from the top of the carburetor. Pull the carburetor off the intake tube and then turn it so you can release the governor linkage. Make sure this white ring is still there on the carburetor along with its O-ring. If it's not there, then it's still on the intake tube and will need to be put back on the carburetor. Once the carburetor is off the engine, it's now time to remove the bowl. We need to get to the main jet and see if it's clogged, causing our fuel problem. Next, gently pry out the emulsion tube section so we can inspect it and clean it if we need to. Now, the part we're interested most in is the small brass jet at the bottom. We'll need to use a small steel wire to clear that jet. While we're here, we might as well take apart the emulsion tube and make sure it's clear. We'll need to be extra careful on this part since it's all plastic. I wouldn't blame you if you skip this part. Like usual, this part doesn't clog very often, but it's nice to know that we did take a look at it. After we've inspected it, we'll very carefully put it back together. When putting the carburetor back together, the emulsion tube only goes in one way, so you don't have to worry about putting it in the wrong way. Now, the bowl has to be installed in a particular way as well. The square cutout at the bottom must be positioned underneath the brass jet that we just cleared. After the carburetor is put back together, let's reinstall it onto the engine. First by reconnecting the governor linkage and then sliding the carburetor back onto the intake tube. Then reconnect the choke linkage and making sure it clicks into position, and then reconnect the fuel line. Finally, reinstall the air filter base, the filter, its cover, and then we'll put some gas into the fuel tank and then try starting it. Well, it seems to be starting and working just fine now. To keep this from happening in the future, try using 100% gas and running it dry between long periods of storage. So my question to you is, do you keep untreated gas in your equipment for months at a time? And if so, do you have any carburetor problems after that? I'm very curious in your answer. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please feel free to ask any questions, and I hope to see you in my next video.